Hello, hello, Youest You listeners. I'm so excited for today's episode with you. I have such a heart-centered, beautiful soul here today. I'm really excited for you to get to know Lucy Shahjahan. She is wonderful and has so much wisdom to share. So let me tell you a little about Lucy, and then you're going to get to meet her yourself. Lucy Shahjahan is a love coach who works with women globally. Growing up in Sydney, Australia, Lucy has always had a taste for adventure, from working on a pearling boat after she left school to tending bars through her late teens, as a ski instructor and whistler to a real job as a creative in the advertising industry, not to mention her time as a radio host. She has such a great accent, by the way. Just get ready. Lucy has always been a people person. Her smile brightens up any room and her laugh is infectious. And at the age of 31, she moved to New York City to follow her dream of acting. She worked in film and theater, loving every second of being on stage. But after performing her one-woman show off-Broadway playing Hilary Clinton, she knew there was a deeper calling inside of her. That's when she took the plunge and started her own business, yay, teaching women how to be their own soulmate so they can attract love and live their best life. Lucy's personal journey inspired her to create her signature program that helps women heal at a soul level from low self-worth, trauma, abandonment, disbelief, and major lack of trust so they can attract their soulmate and thrive in every area of life. After years of continued success with her signature online program, Lucy realized that it was time, and it was the right time, to pen her first book, I'm Done, to share her process with millions of women around the world. Lucy now lives in Los Angeles and is married to the love of her life. She has a beautiful baby girl and an Australian shepherd dog named Stevie Nicks. I love that. Oh my gosh, Lucy and Stevie, welcome. I'm so happy to have you. Oh, really?
Yeah, she's right here.
Oh, that's hysterical. All right. Welcome to you and your sweet dog. I'm really excited you're here today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Can we just talk a little bit about, first of all, I love the name I'm Done. And actually, before we even dive into the book and what it means, often I ask about this concept of being and living your Youest You. And it sounds like you've really been digging and honing into like, what does that mean for you? And I'm curious, just maybe when you hear that, like, what does that look like today? What does that mean to you? What do you think are the key elements to living a life as your Youest You?
I just love the name of your podcast because it truly actually just needs to be the name of every podcast, right? Because everything falls under that umbrella and flows when we are staying true to who we are. We come into this world as these beautiful, innocent souls, and with this expansive outlook and, without any fear. And then we inherit conditioning, stories, paradigms, dynamics, behaviors, from the family that we grew up in, from our ancestors, from the world around us. And so when I hear the Youest You, it's about stripping back all of the layers and the conditioning and actually getting conscious to go, what's mine and what's not. And carving out this path that is the truest to us. And that looks like not people pleasing, not putting yourself last, being the Youest You. When I feel into that, it's about me choosing myself over and over again. And it's not something we're just like, hey, I'm me, I'm all me. It's for me, I feel that it's an everyday process, an everyday unfolding. It's not something we assume, like people say, oh, I just got to, I do self-love. It's like, no, it's not something you tick off.
Yeah.
I feel that the Youest You is just this journey of just continuous expansion and unfolding. And I think it's really important to check in with where we're at when we move away, and just to notice when we move away from ourselves.
Yeah.
And then to go, what do I need to do to come back into alignment? And to really catch ourselves and not beat ourselves up, but to honor ourselves for when we are in alignment and go, yeah, I choose myself. And to celebrate the moments that we do, and then to just lovingly call ourselves back, call that power back when we do step out of our own alignment. I think it's such a powerful name, and it invokes to me a very powerful energy of just even just saying the Youest You. I'm like, oh yeah, I want to step into that today.
Yeah.
That
It's
was a long
awesome.
answer, but it just,
Yeah.
I think it's such a simple concept, Julie, to say, hey, just be you, you know. But it's one of the things that humans struggle with the most
Yeah.
because we, as I said, we get caught in this web of
Yeah.
who we think we should be.
Yeah.
And anytime should is present in our language, it's a very quick red flag to say, hey, get back to your heart.
Oh, I love that, Lucy. One of my questions, you said something that I thought was so powerful. Everything was, but especially this stripping back these layers of conditioning. The idea that, we started as these like beings of light and joy and curiosity. I would love to know, and I think just those getting to know you, where in your life, often we learn how we want to, what is authentic by what isn't authentic. And I'm curious in your life if you've had times, maybe a story or two of when you found yourself like, oh, this is not authentically me, or this is a conditioning, or this does not feel like my meest me. And maybe like, just because it's easy to see all the things you're doing. And I think it's important to know that wasn't always that way.
Oh, absolutely. I had a massive wake up call when I was 31, and I was living in this beautiful, apartment with a couple of friends on Sydney Harbour. I had a great job in air quotes because it wasn't feeding my soul, but it was a great job paying, good money and allowing me to travel. I had great friends, the perfect life on paper.
Right.
And I one morning was so hungover and I was lying in my bed, and Facebook was relatively new back then. And I saw this picture of myself at my friend's 30th birthday. And I saw all these pretty girls just lined up, smiling as you do. And for some reason, I looked at this picture and I was like, I don't recognize that person. Like, I had the smile on, but there was no sparkle behind my eyes. And I kid you not, I just, whatever it was about this picture, I just stared at it.
Mm.
And it was like I suddenly got to see my life in 5D, and I just started crying like a river, just could not stop. And I was like, I don't recognize that girl. Like, this is not the life that I saw for myself. Like, if this is how the next 10 years is going to go,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know who this guy, she may as well be called Sonia, like, not Lucy.
Mm.
And and like I said, I had a hangover, so I was already feeling crummy. And I got in that moment that hangovers were just the norm for me, just going out, drinking far too much, escaping my reality.
Yeah.
But in actual fact, I didn't even realize, like, I was numbing myself, hanging for those weekends because I was so out of alignment with my truth,
Yeah.
with bigness, and with my heart. And, Julie, I actually consciously made that decision. I would say, I can't remember the exact age, but I was definitely below 10, because growing up, I felt that I was too emotional, too big. I stood out. And so I wanted to fit in more than anything. So I made a decision back then, I'm just going to dim that down. I just would rather fit in. I'm kind of, I don't really know how to handle this big version of me. I felt way too sensitive. I used to always share my dreams with my mom every morning. I'm like, guess what I had? She was like, Luce, like every morning, really? And so my mom and I are close, but this whole other side of me that was very, very connected as a little girl, I felt like it wasn't received or understood. And so then I rejected it and
Mm.
I abandoned that part of me because I felt abandoned emotionally. So, at 31, I was like, I remember looking at the universe, just looking up anyway. And I just said, in that moment, I said, something's got to change, like right now.
Yeah.
And I rang my mom and I said, I'm not where I want to be. I'm quitting my job. I don't know what's next.
Mm.
I'm numb and I need to get back to my heart. And so whatever I do next, I don't know what it is, but it's going to be from my heart. And you can imagine people like my friends ringing each other like, hey, what's going on with Lucy? Like, suddenly she's quitting a job. She hasn't got anything to go to. It was during a financial crisis where I was lucky to have a job. And yet I was like, I'm not lucky right now. Like, I'm sitting on my gifts and my magic. I was like, and I'm just suffering with my pretty vision boards up on my wall and technically doing my affirmations and gratitudes, watching The Secret 65 times. And I was just like, Lucy, this is not it. You're technically doing self-development, cerebrally doing self-development. You have not got an inch closer to your heart in the last 10 years. And I went, that's a really confronting reality. And so, to answer your question, I wasn't being the meest me. I was being the me that I thought everyone wanted me to be. I was jazz handsing through life. I was the last one at any party because I somehow took on an obligation that I meant to entertain everyone without even checking in, going, oh, maybe I'm tired. Like maybe it's 11 and I want to go home now. No, I'd be there till 2 a.m, having those extra drinks, not treating myself with reverence, boundaries, respect, honor. So I look back and I just, obviously I love on that part of me, but I go, wow, was I really living like that? Because I had literally been pretending for so long that I had convinced myself that everything was fine.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. I was a hot mess, disconnected. And that's when I was attracting in same guy, different name, not committing, not connecting, no actual intimacy and connection that I was deeply craving, right? With all the nice images on my vision board of this man. No, because I wasn't connected with my heart and my truth and my magic. And here's the other thing. I thought I was so self-expressed in my relationships. I'll never forget this healer once. I went to him and I was like, just help me. Like, I'm a hot mess. And he put his hand on my back. He's like, oh, you've got a lot of rage from when your dad died when you were 8. I was like, I'm not angry. I'm just sad. He goes, no, sister, you're angry. And then he said, and you're 80% suppressed. I said, me? You got the wrong person. I'm not suppressed. I always share what's on my heart. And he's like, no, you don't. And I let that land. And I realized in that moment, I was like, oh, at 31, the reason I'm not where I want to be, well, one of the reasons was because I kept putting my darling mum's voice above my own. And so I was, again, choosing men that I thought, she would like and not taking risks and dabbling with my gifts. And I realized I was living in this box that was getting smaller and smaller and smaller and conforming. And it was getting more black and white and more vanilla by the day. And I was just like, where's this adventurous, amazing, bright light gone? So it was for me a very defining moment that I can remember very, very clearly. And I'm so grateful for it because it was from that moment that I actually chose me. And I said, Lucy, I'm going to get behind you and I'm going to back you. And you and we are going to let the heart govern and the heart lead. And life is going to be great. But I was like a wobbly foal, when little foals stand up and then they fall over. And I had to, at that moment, make a decision because normally I outsourced everyone else's opinions. Like, how do I respond to this guy? 7 different, do this, leave it 2 hours, do that. I didn't have my own voice. That healer was spot on. I was outsourcing everything, including my self-worth. And then I was reining it back. And I said, Lucy, block out the opinions, block out the projections, get back into your seat of truth, stay in your lane, and get clear and ask yourself, what do you want? Those words intimidate a lot of people. Like, why are you asking me that? What do you want? How do you want to feel? Where do you want to be a year from now? Feel it. Let yourself go there. Let yourself open up to these healthy desires that are our birthright. Because I've been squashing desires and getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And we can do that so easily. And it can happen without us even realizing that the rug is being pulled from underneath us until we say no more. And I said, no more, universe. This is not the script. This is not how this is going to go. I'm going to have my soulmate. I'm going to say yes to my gifts. And I'm going to put myself first for the first time in my life. And that's exactly what I did. And it required me, honestly, not asking. And I said to my mom, I'm moving to New York. I'm going to act. And I'm not asking you. I'm telling you. Because if I ask you, you may say something at this moment that I'm not strong enough to hear. And I know her and my brother were like, what's she doing? Like at 31, her friends are having their second baby. Like, what? She hasn't done acting before. I knew that was going on. And thank God I had that boundary. Because maybe I wouldn't have gone. And that was the best decision. One of the best decisions I've made in my life was to get behind myself that day.
Well, I applaud you. That takes if I may say so, a shit ton of courage to do that. That takes a lot of courage. It also sounds like, which I'm hearing, that that complete that moment of just like, who the heck have I become? Who am I? Looking in the mirror and realizing like I'm disconnected. I'm living in, some would call it your mind, in the ego, in the space where you thought you should be. You like said the should. And what I really heard too is this, like, from now on, I'm thinking of I don't know if you saw, I love the musical,
Yes.
The
Songs.
Greatest Showman. My
Yeah.
son and I always sing that from now on. I'm like,
Oh, it's the best song.
that's reminds me of you saying, like, from now on, I'm honoring me. I'm going to that's what I'm doing, which meant, so I didn't realize you left Australia to move to New York City at 31.
I did. And I
Wow.
had no, I didn't know. I knew like 2 people. I hadn't taken, I did acting when I was, in my 20s. And then after, 4 months, I was all cocky. I was like, I'm not a leading lady yet. I'm done. I'm out. So I didn't even stay the course, but that came back, that passion, at 31. And I realized, I back at 31, I was like, I want to be a mum, but I was like, what kind of mum will I be if I'm not even feeding my own soul first and seeing what I'm made of? It doesn't matter if I go to New York and I don't get an Oscar or I don't succeed in acting. It's not about the outcome. It was about me standing on my own 2 feet and seeing what I'm made of. And at the time, people were saying, well, how are you even going to live in New York without a green card? And I said, oh, I'm going to win the green card. What is going on? I sold my little purple Verena. It's like a cute little, hatchback. That was my, my little get around town mobile. It was like, I had character, and and I had adventures in that car. And it was very symbolic. I was like, I'm selling that because I don't do plan B. I'm all in. And I hadn't been all in, and I was sick of not being all in. And I went, I'm all in with this dream. And so I got behind that vision, and I went to New York, and I did win the green card. I nearly fell off my chair when I won it because I wasn't someone that really won things. In our family, it was always my brother. And I was like, I am winning the green card, period. And so when that happened, and I said to the universe very clearly, I said, you want me to go the path less traveled, go to another different country, walk away from family and friends and the life that I know, to go into an acting profession that is so unpredictable. I said, you're going to meet me halfway. I am not going to go in and out on different visas like I see a lot of people do. You're going to bring me the green card, or I will go back to Australia to what I know. And that was how I asked the universe. I was like, listen up, universe. It wasn't, oh, universe, like, it wasn't like that. It was very certain. And this is how I want it to be. And I want my husband, and I want to have children. I'm not just coming here for career. And I was so clear on that ask. And so to me now, I look back and I can see, and I use that as a reference, to say, wow, what energy was I in when I called that in? Because you know what it's like when we all have things we want to manifest, and we think we're doing all the things, but if we're not vibrating with that internally, and we don't truly let ourselves actually align with that and vibrate that and believe that, then it's just a top line request. And then we get disappointed saying, but I'm doing all the things. But yeah, doing all the things, but the main piece, which is to let yourself have that in advance.
Yeah. No,
so I was sharing with casting directors like, hey, Lucy, have you got the green card? Yeah, it's coming. My acting coach was like having a nervous breakdown. She's like, oh my God, this Lucy girl is like lying to these casting directors. And then when I got it, I was like, Susan, I said, I actually won the green card. And she was like, oh my God, I couldn't continue to watch you lie. I was like, I wasn't lying. I knew it was coming.
Yeah. Saying thank you in advance, which is, of course, one of the strongest ways to manifest. I love it. It's so great with the certainty. What a great story. I didn't realize. Okay. So you were 31 in NYC, you're doing the acting thing. I know, in all that world. How did you start moving into getting into the world of being a love coach? Like what helped you to, and where did you pivot from there?
Yeah. So I took on, I said no initially when my acting coach said, you need to play Hillary Clinton and do a one-woman show. I could feel what that was going to take. And I actually knew when she suggested that to me, that would be one of the, for whatever reason, I knew that would be one of the biggest roles that I would play.
Yeah.
And I said no initially because I was like, I don't know about politics and Hilary's still alive. And I said, why can't I play Marilyn Monroe? Like, she's vulnerable. I said, I already know how to do strong. And she said, you don't know your power until you play her. And I said, so she spoke. And I said, and something in my body felt that truth. And I thought, oh, okay. And I got the memo from the universe, and I was like, okay, I don't have a choice in this. I mean, of course I did. But I was like, okay, this is part of like my dharma. This is on my path, and I just need to lean in. So I said yes to it. And initially, of course, it was to attract, it was a show that I could invite casting directors to. With all the work I've been doing, I was like, yay, I can showcase myself and portray Hilary in a very human way. It was really about showing the vulnerable part of Hilary and her strength.
Yeah.
Well, this turned into something different. Halfway through, I discovered that from stepping into Hilary's shoes and from diving so deep into this character and giving over to the rage that she felt, like I was dead set channeling in this role. It was full on. And in fact, my coach said, just with the rehearsal, she was like, this is some of the most moving stuff I've ever seen. It was actually when I had the script that it started to get tougher for me. But in the playing around with what I was going to do, when I felt so free, there were moments that just like, almost like out of body. It was just amazing to step into that freedom. And I got this, memo I'd been told all my life by various healers, oh, Lucy, you're here to help women. You're here to, help people transform their lives. And I was like, yeah. When I've had children, when I'm about 60, then I'll be in a place to do that. So I'd always had that out there. And because this role brought me literally to my knees, I was rehearsing till 3 a.m. I mean, it was pulling everything out of me, from the rock bottom elements to really portray Hilary, to drawing on the things, because I did method acting. So I was pulling on like the loss of my dad and leaning on that night after night, which is pretty taxing.
Yeah.
And what happened was I realized I was actually giving birth to the leader within me. And so this somehow, it became something very different, where I lost interest in needing it to be about inviting any casting directors. And I got so invested in wanting to actually really bring Hilary's story and portrayal to life, whether people were for or against her. I was like, this is something that I feel very passionate about portraying. And so, people say it's about really being present and passionate and just being in the moment versus I'm doing this to get that. And so I became so present. And I realized, I said, oh my goodness, like I think I invited like one casting director because I didn't want the extra pressure. I was terrified to get on that stage. I'd never done theater, and suddenly I'm doing a one-woman show. And so I just went, I don't need that extra pressure right now. I had standing ovations. I couldn't even feel it. I was so in the character that it was actually a little scary. And honestly, just to keep it simple, I felt that moment, and I said to myself, if I don't step into this bigger space of saying a hell's yes to me, stepping into that thought leader, into that person that really helps people transform, I was like, if I died tomorrow, am I okay with not doing this work right now? And I got very present to the fact that I wasn't invincible. I think because I was so out of my comfort zone, I was just like, it was palpable. And I went, would I be okay with not doing this work right now? And I said, no, absolutely not. So at the end of the show, I actually rang my family. I said, I'm stepping into creating a movement and into coaching. And they were like, well, of course. I said, oh. They're like, yeah, this is who you are. So that was really, it was a very interesting moment. Other friends were only catching up with the fact that I'm an actor. And like, what do you mean you're an actor and now you're doing coaching? I was like, I am living on the edge of my heart, and this is what is the loudest right now. Was I scared, Julie, to do that? And especially as I was in a very good place, right, where I could have easily invited, 20 casting directors, but I felt the call. And I thought, if it doesn't work out, I'll come back to acting because I love it. But if it does, then wow, let's see what opens up. And I had a bit of imposter syndrome. I remember being on a treadmill one day and I was like, who am I to do this? And this feels terrifying. And there's already an Oprah, there's already Brene Brown, there's already Gabby Bernstein. Like, who am I to do this? And then I caught myself. I was like, there's no Lucy Shahjahan. And who are you not to do this?
Yeah.
So I kept walking on the treadmill and I was like, just get out there, Lucy, and give it a whirl and get out of the way of how you think it needs to be. We're not going for perfection here. People just want real. And so I did that. And it unfolded. And there were moments when I first began this community where I was actually hiding. I got other people to come in and speak. And I didn't want it to be about me. I was like, oh, let me just showcase all these people. And suddenly people in my community were like, we want to hear you speak. I was like, oh, okay. And then I didn't look back. I started speaking. Initially, I started with, I wrote out all these notes, wanting to keep on schedule and structure. And then I chucked them away. And then I let the downloads and the channeling come through. And that's where things started to get really, really fun, was when I actually, said yes to myself again and just trusted that divinity is inside of all of us. And it's just about giving over to it. And so that we can access, those divine messages to come through us. And I was like, I'm a conduit, I'm a channel. It's not about me per se. So that was a big shift once again, because initially I'm like, oh, I've got to get it right. And then I just shifted into another gear where I kind of had a chuckle to myself, just saying, Luce, like on the days I felt scared to show up, I was like, darling, just get out of your own way and keep showing up.
Yeah. You're able to really do that, which is amazing.
Sorry, it just cut out, but
amazing. I think we're back. Yeah, no, it was amazing. I love the whole, living on the edge of your heart and the following that. And quick question, did you get to meet Hilary? Did you ever actually get to meet her, or did she?
Yes, I did. I actually, at the time, I jumped on a jitney bus up to the Hamptons when she was having this book signing. There was the longest queue. And so, I went up and found this mother and daughter, and I was like, can I come and stand with you? I'm on my own and I can't wait in that long line. They let me in. And you know what? I Hilary'd her. She was all like smiley to everyone, these kids. And then I saw her when I came in. I don't know if she could feel my presence or something, but she sort of looked a little bit taken aback. And I said, hi, Hilary, I'm playing you, which of course, I guess is kind of normal if someone's telling you they're playing you.
Yeah.
And I said, don't worry, Hilary, I'm all for you. I said, I'm showing you off in the best possible light. And then she paused and she relaxed. And then she grabbed her assistant and said, give Lucy, our card. And I reached out to her assistant and I got a handwritten letter from Hilary. The thing is, she was far more interested in the movement at the time. It was called Right on Time, because it's about you're right on time right now to do whatever your heart desires. She wrote more about that in the letter than the actual show. But I was so excited when I received that handwritten letter from her.
That's awesome. That is so cool. Yeah, I was just, I would think it'd be so synchronistic and very interesting to actually meet the person you've embodied and played and really pulled parts of yourself out. I mean, it just seems like what a transformative experience to do that. Incredible.
Yeah, you learn a lot about yourself when you get into someone else's world. And
yeah,
truly, whether people like her or not, that's okay. What I want you to hear inside of this conversation is, she is someone that's playing a big game. She was putting herself out there.
Yeah.
And she's powerful, very powerful. But I think we can all agree that the vulnerability was missing from her.
Yeah.
And had she brought that forward, it would have been interesting to see whether she did get in.
Yeah.
And so that in my own journey is the piece that was missing from me. So as much as I wanted to play Marilyn Monroe,
right,
my coach knew better than that. She's like, no. And that vulnerability that I found inside of me to then portray through Hilary. I had people at the show saying, I don't even like Hilary. And I really like her now. Like I want to go and research her more. So
great.
That was the piece, was around opening up my heart and digging really, really deep to squeeze every last ounce of
Mm.
myself, into the world.
I love this story for a lot of reasons. And I think before we start to wrap, I do want to talk about your book, I'm Done, and how to tell us a little bit about what that's about, how that took from your experience, I'm guessing from, before moving to New York to then the pivot after playing Hilary and then getting into coaching to what you've been doing now. Like maybe just give us a taste of I'm Done. I love the title.
Thank you. Yeah. So, I help women all around the world become their own soulmate first, to really heal the things that they're just not getting taken care of in therapy. It goes really, really deep and it happens pretty quickly. And I knew that I needed to have a book in the world, not just to say I've got a book, but because
Yeah.
women need to have a role model, and they need to be shown like you can have this. And so I literally downloaded this book when I was 34 weeks pregnant. We just moved to California, and I felt once again that moment, that little knock on my shoulder from the universe, just saying it's now. And it wasn't convenient. We hadn't even found a place to live at that time. We were in temporary accommodation. We went up to Palm Springs, and I downloaded in like 8 hours with my husband. He just hit record on Rev, and it just all flowed through. And I just want you to hear that for yourself, that it wasn't like it was the perfect time. I knew there was a side of me, just like right now, you know that there's something wanting to come through from you. And we can get so caught up in, we've got to feel ready. It's got to be the right time. I've got to be further along. And you don't. I didn't even know what was going to come through that day. And I actually wanted to bail. I said to my husband, I didn't sleep that well last night. Let's just do it another day. He's like, you're doing it. And I said, okay.
Nice.
And so the book really, I take people by the hand, and it's tough love, but it's incredibly supportive and loving. Just showing you that, you can have whatever you put your mind to, but you've got to get your heart open, and you've actually got to show up for yourself. This is not a book to read while downing, a liter of wine and watching Netflix. You won't get any change. This is literally about co-creating with me as I take you through the journey of what is required to be your own soulmate. And of course, the title speaks for itself. I certainly got to that place of feeling absolutely done with all the things that I was doing, going to different healers, watching The Secret, vision boards, affirmations, Reiki, hypnotherapy, you name it, I was doing it, kinesiology. And I started to feel like a failure. I was like, I'm doing all the things, I haven't got a face like a smash crap. I'm a good person. Like, why can't I get this to work for me? So I think that for those of you listening, maybe you are on this journey and you have been proactive, and you are, seeking support. But I just want to throw you a lifeline to say that don't be tough on yourself if you're not where you want to be right now. You're amazing, and you have a beautiful soul, beautiful heart, and so much magic inside of you. And just remember, you've got to question, if these things aren't getting you the outcome, then pivot and switch, and make sure that you get the level of support that you deserve. That's my biggest message, because I think it's easy for us to feel like we're doing all the things, but when we get honest, like for me, I look back and it was very scattergun, and I was dabbling, and I wasn't shifting the needle with my heart space. It was almost like, because I was keeping so busy technically doing all the things, I didn't have to actually face myself. And when I actually said, I'm done, I'm actually ready to go within and look at those parts of myself that I've been keeping hidden, and I'm willing to step into the bigness of who I am, the how and the way and the support all showed up. And so it's a beautiful place to be, actually, when we get done. It's because then we can open the door and the light can come through. So really excited to share this book with the world, and it's on pre-order right now. So you can just go to www.soul2soulglobal, and that's soul, T-O, soulglobal.com/book. And it's got beautiful bonuses for you. And I'm just really, really excited to bring it into the world. And I really am excited to hear how you enjoy it.
So beautiful. Well, it reminds me, before we close, I'll say it reminds me of the declaration that you made to the universe about I'm winning a green card. It's got the same energy to it that I'm done is saying like, yeah, I'm here. Universe, listen up. We're shifting things. Get on board. It's happening. And that's really the energy that's needed to create lasting change. And so I love that. It has the same quality to me as when you were like, I'm winning that green card. It's like, I'm done with the way things are going. We're going to pivot this. And I
You.
love it. I love it. We all, I think everyone can ask the question, where are you done? What are you ready to be like done with? And then it's such a great, I love the concept. And of course, the idea of coming back to yourself and really being your own soulmate. So beautiful, Lucy. I am so glad that you got to share today. I always end with just the way I call it is a heart flare. Is there any last heart flare that I didn't ask you or something you just feel you want to share briefly with everyone listening today? We're so grateful for you. By the way, all of you beautiful listeners, because I know there's so many ways you can listen to many different amazing things, but we're honored to have you here today, and you as well, Lucy.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Look, it's really just adding on to the sentiment of I'm done. And, it has 2020, it's been a monumental year for all of us. And yes, there might be many of you listening saying, oh, it's an amazing year for me. And that's awesome. Go you. But there's also been, I feel like we've really had to be with ourselves undeniably in a whole new way.
Yeah.
So I just want to really empower you to not feel disheartened by being done and to actually feel liberated, that when we can actually admit to ourselves that things need to change and that you come full circle back to, well, what are my desires and who do I want to be in the world despite a pandemic, right? Despite the uncertainty, despite not knowing, the new world and we're all sitting here together as a collective, moment to moment, without knowing everything up front. And it's a really, really powerful place to be, to just love on yourself, and to, I feel like just give yourself this really beautiful, warm hug of recognition to say, like, I've got you. And being done is the most powerful gift you can actually admit to yourself, because from that moment, you're saying, I deserve more, I'm asking for more, and I'm going to have more.
Beautiful. That's so powerful. Thank you so much. I just had my I'm done moment in my head. So I'm thankful for you. I'm thinking about it. I'm like, this is the year I heal my thyroid. I'm like, we're done. I'm done with how it's been going. And it's funny, I've been saying that and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to keep affirming I'm done, which is so powerful. It's so simple. And so thank you, because that just affected me. And I'm sure anyone listening to really think about where would that be, in your life. And I really appreciate you and the beautiful, you have such a great light about you. And so thank you for sharing that here today on the Youest YOU podcast, and just for allowing yourself to be done with the various parts of you so that the parts that are your Youest YOU can keep evolving. It's really cool to hear. And I'm thankful you're here today.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you so much. And I just want to, acknowledge you for creating such a powerful podcast, because even just in coming on as a guest to really sit into that beautiful frequency of, being the meest me and the Youest YOU. It's just, for me, it's just a really beautiful reminder. And I just want to celebrate you for creating this.
Well, thank you. And we are all sending you love and light and excitement for your book. Thank you, Lucy.
Thanks, Julie.